Hello, welcome to the first live chat of 2024. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Laken, and I go live every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. For almost 4 years now, I've been going live. It has not always been at this time. We have bounced around days and times of day. And over the last almost 4 years, we have done these calls almost strictly a Q&A. Sometimes there was a topic here or there, but for the most part, they have been Q&A style. And we are doing things a little differently this year. I'm so excited that every week the live is now going to have a topic that we are going to go through. But I am getting a little bit ahead of myself. We are going to start with just one question. I love hearing what you're drinking. And if you still want to share, if you have been around and you want to share what you're drinking, I would love to hear it. But I really want to know from everybody, and for time's sake, sticking with one question now, is what is one small win that you have from the last week? It can be related to your goals. It can be not related to your goals. Any small win that you have from the last week. If you are here live, please say hello in the chat and let me know what your win is. And if you are part of the replay fam, I would love for you to share in the comments so I can come read all of your wins when you share them, when you're watching the replay. I'm going to wait for a couple of comments to come in, and then I will also share mine. Still have iced coffee in my cup. I do also have iced coffee, which you'll see me pick up. That's so good. I'm trying to be a little bit better about not having a second cup of coffee every single day. Like, I don't need it every single day. I'm really being thoughtful about, like, am I staying up later that night for something specific? Do I need to be on later that day? Like tonight, I don't necessarily think I'm staying up later, but we do have a community coaching call. So I will need to have energy at 6 p.m. Or like, did Lila have a rough night and I need extra coffee, etc. Today, said community call is why I'm having coffee. All right. Happy Wednesday. Made it through 2023. I love that. Carrie, thank you for being my first guinea pig. If you are new here, you may not have heard me say this, but if your name that you prefer to go by is something different than your YouTube name, like Carrie's, I would love for you to include it in the comments so that I can still address you by your name. I set up my 2024 paper planner and updated digital planner. I love that. Tea with honey, yum. Reached your 2023 reading goal. Congrats, Aki. That's amazing. Organize the paperwork on your desk. Oh, I feel that. What's behind me is also kind of a disaster, but then also what's behind you is really a disaster. Organize my bathroom drawers for the first time since we moved. Oh my gosh, Alexis, that's amazing. Got your January monthly, weekly, daily goals and habits set up and have been tracking. I love that. Wrote 3,000 words. Holy moly. That's amazing. That's huge. Welcome to the live. Cancels out that it's your fourth coffee. I wish it was that way, Leah. Like, I wish as long as I had a cup of water with my coffee that it was okay. Kept your nutrition coach appointment, even though you knew the holiday pounds would be there. I love that. Reach your reading goal, another reading goal success for 2023. Did your AM and PM routines, one step each, Jamie, keeping it small. So proud of you. Visiting your mom. I love that. She lives in another state, so trying to be better about visiting her, realizing life is short and stop putting things off. Absolutely. Baby steps back into a routine and unpacked for our cruise. It usually takes me weeks, not days. Lisa, that's amazing. That's huge. So let me share you mine with you is I got back on the Peloton. If you follow me on Instagram, this is not news to you. You saw it. If you follow me on Instagram and you see my stories, which you may not, I mean, the number of people that follow me compared to the number of people who view my stories is a fraction. So if you don't see my stories and you want to, you can turn notifications on. I am trying to be better this year about sharing more there in not just like highlights of like, here's the things that is happening, like, I don't know if you know what I mean, what's going on in my head, but I feel like I typically only share on Instagram stories when it's like a highlight or like the perfect picture. And I'm trying to be more like, what would I vlog if I was vlogging, and sharing that to an Instagram story. Baby steps back to moving your body more, Wendy. I love it. Read before bed the last 2 nights instead of, I'm assuming, Lisa, you mean scrolling. I already jotted that down as a quarterly goal idea for myself for Q2. Not trying to do a million things in Q1, but wrote down reading before bed as a Q2 idea for me. Went back to Planet Fitness. Debbie, that is amazing. I love it. I love hearing about all of your wins, y'all. It just makes me so happy. Okay, before we jump into content and topics and all the things that I have planned for today, really quick, there is going to be no live next week. I know we are back for a brand new year and I'm so excited about the new format. But my childcare situation next week, will not be able to go live. There will be a video in its place. Okay, before we jump into the topic, I also am going to kick the lives off with reading updates. So, as I saw from a lot of the wins, and I know a lot of you are readers. And even if you're not, hopefully you'll find this little segment interesting. If you're here live, if you are watching the replay, the timestamps are going to be linked in the description box. You can skip right over this section if you would like. So, I have struggled for a lot of years on how I want to share reading on my channel. And we're once again trying something new. I am not saying that this is going to be the end all be all solution to me sharing my reading updates with you, but it at least is going to be an option. We're going to try it. We're going to see how it goes. So if you did not catch the video I did all about my reading goals, I will link that. I actually already have linked that in the description box and I will have it pop up in the corner. For 2024, my goal is actually 15 books, and it's 15 specific books that I have already picked out. And I share all of that in a vlog during Vlogmas. So I have that linked if you haven't checked that out and you want to hear about all the books that I'm reading. So the point is that if you watched that video, when I tell you what I'm currently reading, it should not necessarily be a surprise to you, but I thought it would be fun to share what I'm currently reading. And then when I finish books, which I haven't finished one yet. Also, I have seen people on Instagram share they've already finished books for 2024. And I'm like, that's amazing. I have not, but I will share when I finish books. And then in that video, I also share 5 maybes. So I will keep you updated on those. And then if I finish any of the books, if I finish all the books in any of the categories, so I have 15 specific books in 3 different categories. It's fiction, nonfiction, personal, and nonfiction business. And if I finish any of those, then I will move on. And so I will share those as part of the lives. So like I mentioned, I have nothing to share in terms of finished. I've finished 0 books. Currently reading nonfiction is The Lazy Genius Kitchen. This falls under the category of nonfiction personal. I had originally thought I was going to try and do a nonfiction personal and a nonfiction business at the same time. I don't think I hardly have time to read this one right now. That's not true. It's not that I hardly have time. It's that I'm not prioritizing the time to read it right this second. And so starting another nonfiction book just seems too much. So I think I'm just going to alternate, like my personal one, a business one, a personal one, business one, so on and so forth. But this is the nonfiction one that I'm reading. I actually started it in that week between Christmas and New Year's. I had talked about it in the video, and then my editor actually sent me a message. She got it and started reading it, and she suggested that I jump in. Man, I hope you're okay that I sharing this. I should have just said a friend. She suggested that I start reading it before I try to start organizing my kitchen, because a lot of the beginning is about kitchen setup and organizing. And so I don't want to spend all this time organizing my kitchen, which is one of my Q1 goals, to then redo it all once I read the book. So I started reading it, but I'm not super far into it. I'm also not stressing this year, by the way. As always, you can follow me on Goodreads. I'm not always good at accepting on time. I will accept you. I just don't accept up to speed. I'm not worrying about updating the percentages on Goodreads this year. Like what I'm currently reading and what I've read will always be accurate, but like I'm not doing the percentages. If I read something on Kindle, I have it linked and it'll update that way. But if I'm reading a hard copy book, I used to do it because I used to like to see how far along I was. And that's just one other thing I need to update that I'm not prioritizing. And then for fiction, I am listening to Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. I listen to this mostly when I'm falling asleep or during night feedings, and then when I'm falling asleep from said night feedings. And then I've also been starting to listen to it a little bit more in the evening time as kind of like relaxing. Like if I'm doing something in the evening and I don't want to listen to a podcast. Pretty much all my podcasts are business focused. And so like, I don't want to listen to that in the evening time. I'm ready to turn my brain off. And I'm listening to this in place of like having friends on for the 1 millionth time. So what I am trying to decide is if I am going to also start like a actual like reading, not that listening is not actual reading. It absolutely is. It totally counts. But I mean like another fiction book that I'm actually reading. I've never even remotely considered reading 2 fiction books at the same time. And if they were 2 fiction books I'd never read, then I would be like, no, I'm definitely not going to do it. But because I obviously have read and watched and I know the story of Harry Potter, I feel like I could maybe get away with it. But the other side is all the other fiction books I've chosen this year are kind of in the same genre-ish. So am I going to get really confused? The books on my list are Court of Thorns and Roses and Fourth Wing. So I would love if you've read those books and Harry Potter, like would I be biting off a little bit more, not from a scheduling habit standpoint that I feel okay about. I mean, from a mental standpoint, is listening to Harry Potter and then also reading one of those other books going to be too difficult or complicated? I would love to hear from any of you who have read both of those, especially. I would love your opinion, or anybody who's done more than one fiction at one time, and you've done like an audio fiction and then like a physical reading fiction. Any thoughts? I'm going to pause for a second. How I already talked for 10 minutes. I have no idea. Okay. If you're watching the replay, I would love your thoughts as well on the multiple fiction situation. Like I mentioned, I am not necessarily prioritizing reading before bed until next quarter. So it may not even be it may be a non-issue, because maybe by next quarter I will have listened to both Harry Potter books and then we won't have night meetings anymore. I'm trying to do that math and see how feasible that is. So I guess TBD on that. All right. Let's jump into the topic of the week, which is defining your goals. Now, if you are here and you participated in the 2024, oh, thank you, Lisa. Can you do it? Yes, probably better with Fourth Wing than Court of Thorns and Roses. Okay, thank you. All right. Topic, defining your goals. So if you participated in the 2024 goal workshops, whether you were there live or you did the replay, you heard me talk about this. And that is it is going to sound a little bit repetitive, because this process for defining goals is something that I have honed in on for the last couple of years and feel really passionately about. I think that we are very good at coming up with, sometimes, if this is something you struggle with, that totally happens. Most of us are good at coming up with goals that we want to accomplish. We usually have more ideas than we know what to do with. Maybe prioritizing needs to be a topic. But even more so than that, we come up with a general concept of a goal, and that's what we call it. I want to lose weight. I want to read more. I want to declutter my house. I want a cleaning routine, et cetera, et cetera. That's a great starting point. But those goals can mean so many different things to so many different people, depending on a lot of different stuff. That was super vague, but that's the whole point, is those goals are actually very vague, and what it means to you in your life is going to be very specific. And so I have come up with 5 questions, categories, things to think about when you are getting really clear on what those goals mean to you right now, given your life right now. And so again, if you went through the workshops, you've heard me talk about this. I encourage you to still listen to what I'm going to say, because knowing me, things are going to come out that I didn't say before, especially because we're here live. And you can also always ask questions or ask me to clarify things. And you may think of something slightly different. Now, I'm not telling you to listen to this video and go completely change your 2024 goals. If your 2024 goals are set, this video is going to be more of a reference for you going forward, or maybe you just think about things a little bit differently. So like I mentioned, defining your goal is I should have popped this up while I was talking there, is getting very clear on what it means to you. And the why behind this is that it's actually going to help you determine action steps that are going to impact, what did I say actually? No, I only have actually in there once. What you want to see happen, what is important to you. When you figure out the answers to these questions and get really clear on what this goal means to you, you're going to be able to pick action steps that will actually get you to where you want to be. Otherwise, you're going to pick action steps that might get someone to some form of that goal, but it might not be what you actually want. So number one is, what does the outcome of this goal look like? And I asked Sam this question the other day. Sam is my husband, about something, and he was like, what? He didn't understand that question. So let me get a little bit more detailed, because if you're just using the Goals with Laken planner and you saw this question and you were like, I don't know how to answer it. What I mean by this is, When this goal is no longer on your list, when you've checked it off or removed it, or it is at the point that you feel good about it, you wouldn't want to change anything. Now, that doesn't mean you can't change your mind at some point. Remember, like I said, we're talking about right now. But that goal is in a state that you feel good about it. Do you feel like that is the ideal state? Knowing what you know right now, what does that end state look like? What is the final status of the goal? So if it's a workout routine that you're trying to build up to, what does that look like when you are doing it on a regular basis? How many, how long, what types of workouts? If you are looking to come up with a cleaning routine, what does that end state look like? Now, I don't mean like, what are the actual steps that you're going to do to, no, that's breakdown. We're not there. We're just in the vision and planning portion of it. What would that look like? Would your house feel clean, clean-ish? What percentage clean would your house feel? Would you not clean on the weekends so you can chill? Or would you not clean during the weekdays so you can focus on work? Like, what would that routine look like and feel like for you? Next question is, or category is impact. So how does this goal impact my day-to-day life? Or how do I want it to impact my day-to-day life? Now, if you are thinking about this in a goal that doesn't impact your day-to-day life, that's fine. It doesn't mean it's a bad goal, but it is something to think about. And again, going back to the cleaning example, right? Maybe it's that you don't want it to impact your day-to-day because you don't want to clean every single day. You want to not have to think about cleaning. Well, that is going to directly correlate with the action steps you're going to pick for that specific goal. So how does this goal impact, or how do you want it to impact your life on a day-to-day basis? Number 2 in this section is, how does this goal impact my life in 5 to 10 years? Or how do I want it to impact my life in 5 to 10 years, right? Maybe getting that workout routine in and getting it figured out is going to impact your life in 5 to 10 years, because you're going to have to go to way less doctor's appointments because you are in a much better physical place. Or maybe you are going to crawl around on the floor with your grandchildren. That's just my mom. But thinking about how it impacts your life. That example that I just gave would directly correlate to the actual types of workouts that somebody would want to schedule if their goal is to crawl around on the floor with their grandchildren, getting up and down off the floor, getting up and down while holding a baby, thinking about what weights you want to use, thinking about using weights, period, instead of just walking, right? The impact that goal has on your life can directly correlate with the action steps. By the way, I want to let you know, you are welcome to add comments and ask questions while I'm talking. That is the beauty of this being live. So if you have something to say, or a comment or a question related to what I'm talking about, I'll flip back and forth. So please feel free to still do that. And I will continue. If you have a question about something totally different, save that till the end when we get to the Q&A part of the live. But if you have a question or a comment on the topic we're talking about, feel free to put it in the comments. Okay. Number 3, feelings. We're going to talk about feelings. So step 1 is, how do I want to feel when I'm done with this goal? And I really want you to get more specific than, I want to feel accomplished. Okay, great. We all want to feel accomplished. That's awesome. How do you actually want to feel? How do you want to feel specifically related to this goal? Sometimes in this feeling category, it's easier to come up with the negative. I don't want to feel X. That's fine. You can start there and then try and find the positive. Try and flip it around. Word Hippo is a great website to use for something like this, because it's going to give you ideas of other words you can use. Let's say you think, I want to feel happy. Okay. What is that? Happy is a fine word, but can we come up with a better word that really describes how you want to feel? Go to Word Hippo, type in the word happy, and see what the other options are. More importantly, though, is question number 2 in this section, which is, how do I want to feel while I am working on this goal? I hate to break it to you, but goals take a long time to achieve. They just do. And most goals are going to take longer than you want them to. Also unfortunate. Not unfortunate, just reality. So what I want you to think about is how you want to feel while you are working on this goal. And once again, looking for a positive, because if you don't probably want to, but if you feel negative while you're working on a goal, you're probably going to quit. you're probably going to give up. If you are feeling negative, there are a lot of goals that if we went all the way to the extreme, theoretically, we could achieve it way faster. But if we go all the way to the extreme, how do we think we're going to feel while we're working on that goal? It's probably not going to be great. And then we're going to give up before we get there. So I want you to really think about, how do you want to feel while you are working on your goal? And then the ever most important question, why is this goal important to you? And I want you to, if you can, dig a little deeper, quoting Princess and the Frog. I want you to dig a little deeper and really figure out why that goal is important to you. Not your mom, not your spouse, not your child, not your neighbor, not your best friend, you. Why is that goal important to you? And I always tell the example, which is oh so much more fun to apply because this will be my life someday, is I want you to imagine you're with a cute little toddler and they ask you a question, a little inquisitive toddler, and you give them an answer and they go, but why? And you're like, okay, let me figure that out. And you kind of give them another answer. You kind of give them a why and they go, okay, but why? And they ask you like 700 times until they get distracted and go play with something else. I want you to be that inquisitive toddler. I want you to ask yourself, but why? But why is that important to me? Okay, but why is that important to me? I want you to keep asking yourself until you get to a reason that you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I get it. Now, I also want you to remember there is no bad why. I was listening to actually, it may have been his new book. So I've talked about John Acuff before. I really like his book Soundtracks. He has a new book called All It Takes Is a Goal, which I do think is good. It's a lot. There's a lot going on in that book. So I'm not quite ready to recommend it as intensely as I will recommend Soundtracks. So I think this was in his book, but I also listened to his podcast. And so I feel like it all kind of blends together at some point. He talked about how you, for goals, need to start with a superficial why. And I think that can be really helpful. That can be a really great place to start. And if that is your why, that's great. If that is your only why and you don't want to find something a little bit deeper, great. That's awesome. There is no bad why. There doesn't have to be you don't have to want to lose weight so you can be here for your grandkids. You don't have to. You don't have to want to declutter your house so that your mother-in-law doesn't judge you when she comes over. You don't have to want any of those things. There is no, even if it feels like, well, that's why I should want to work on this goal. Okay. You could pick a different why. It doesn't have to be the why that you feel like you have to pick. All that matters is that it's important to you. And then the last question related to this defining and getting clear on our goals is asking yourself, what does success look like for this goal over the next time frame? Whether that's this year, this quarter, or even just this month, even just what does success look like for this goal? Like I said before, most goals take a lot longer than we want to admit to achieve. And so while you think about the outcome, right, checking this off, it being done, maybe those two things line up. Maybe they don't. And a lot of times they probably won't. So get clear on what does success look like for this time period that you're focusing on this goal. And that's going to direct your action steps for this time period. And then you're going to reassess. We're going to redo this assessment on a regular basis so that you can make adjustments as needed. So those are the questions or the things that I encourage you to really think about getting clear on your goals and defining them before you actually start taking action, because that is going to be able to let you pick action steps that will put you in the direction that you actually want to go. So that was defining. The next step is breaking down. Is that still a struggle for you? I have a bonus coming. So there is going to be a bonus video and handouts coming to the community this month, all about breaking down your goals. Maybe you've already broken down your 2024 goals. Totally fine. This is not for you. If you're still struggling to break down your 2024 goals, come join the community. I am going to upload a bonus in about a week-ish. End of next week, there will be a bonus all about breaking down your goals. And then it also will be a great ongoing resource for you to reference back to in future months and quarters when you need to break down future goals. All right. That is what I have prepared for you. 24 minutes. Okay. That feels pretty good. I didn't really have a thought, to be totally honest, on where I thought we were going to go time-wise. But now it is time for Q&A. So you can ask any questions. It could be about the topic that we're talking about, but it doesn't have to be. It could be about your specific goals. Think of this as what we used to use our Q&A time for, right? Is there a question that you have about your specific goals, which I promise somebody else is going to benefit from the answer. So even if you think like, oh, it's really specific to me in my life, I guarantee you it will still be beneficial for somebody. It could be about a struggle that you're having related to your goals or anything else, whatever else you want to ask a question about. The rest of the time, I will be here. I mean, I'm not going to hang around if nobody's asking questions, but I still have allocated an hour for the lives. So whatever questions you have, we can chat. I also need to like take a break and take a sip of water. Normally there's a lot more like pausing in the lives because I'm reading questions, and that was just like me talking for 25 minutes. So what is on your mind? What do you feel like struggling with? Thank you for those who shared comments about the booking. I have a question about the goals planner. I need to know how to use it. Eliana, am I pronouncing that right? That's a beautiful name. So the goal planner, for the most part, has instruction pages. Like it tells you this page is for this, answer this question. You just fill it out. It is I hope that it's pretty straightforward on how to fill it out. Oh, it's one section in particular. Okay, that was going to be my question. Is there a page that you're particularly stuck on that I can help you work through? The brainstorming. Okay. Are you talking about brainstorming the action steps for the month? Okay. So the brainstorming for the month is the purpose of it is so that you don't immediately just write everything down. Like if you don't take the time to brainstorm, you will likely just fill up that entire page of the monthly tracking page and likely bite off more than you can chew. So the purpose of the brainstorming is so that you take a pause and maybe cross something off, maybe prioritize a little bit before you actually write it down. But the brainstorming page is just all the ideas that you could possibly work on this month, all of the things that you could possibly work on. And okay, like the one-time action steps versus the weekly and the daily. Do you do this for all the goals or one for each goal? So the way that I have it set up, and I've said this a bazillion times, but to make sure I say it again, the goal planner I created is for me. I created what I want and the way I think about prepping my goals. So the way that I use that page is I do it goal by goal. So I start with goal 1. All right, for goal 1, what are the monthly ideas? What are the ideas, the action steps? And I go back and I reference the breakdown pages from earlier in the planner, and I jot down all the one-time ideas. Then I jot down all the weekly ideas, and then I jot down all the daily ideas for that one goal. And then I check off at the top for that one goal. Sometimes there are not sections. I was actually just working with my sister yesterday on her goals. And for one of her goals, there's like no one-time steps. Like there just isn't any. And that's fine. Then I do goal 2 and I do the same thing, the one-time steps, the weekly steps, the daily steps. And I do all of that just to get ideas, just to brainstorm and get all the ideas out onto that piece of paper. Now, if I'm being totally honest with you, I start brainstorming like now. So there's 2 brainstorming pages. Actually, Eliana, are you talking about the one that has 8 boxes by goal? Or are you talking about the one that we were just talking about with the one time, the weekly, and the daily? So the one I was just referencing, because I realized there's 2, is the one time, the weekly, and the daily. That's the one I do in the moment when I'm setting up my goals, right? And I do it just the way I just explained. Okay, perfect. Okay, then I'm not even gonna like complicate it with the other one. Okay, hopefully that helps. I'm always here to answer questions. Again, I hope that the goal planner explains itself, but if it doesn't, that is what these lives are here for. And I'm actually going to write down brainstorm explanation. I already have like a whole laundry list of things, of changes I want to make to the goal planner actually. And it's hard because when I knew I was releasing a full year version, I was like, that likely means that I can't make updates as we go. I mean, I can, but like, I'm not going to re-release them. So yeah, which is so strange. Okay. Carrie, how do you differentiate between goals and projects? If I combine the two, my list is so long. So this depends on the mindset that you have about goals and projects. If you listen to Sarah Cannon from Heart Breathings talk about this and her HB90 system, she considers goals this level and projects within those. And then the projects are meant to help you achieve your goals, right? The projects that you work on are meant to help you achieve those higher level, big category goals. You can absolutely do it that way. I do it sometimes that way in the sense that I have my goals that are more broad, and then my quarterly goals are a little bit more project based, but that doesn't mean that there's not going to be another project within that. To me, in my mind, goals are the vague, big ideas, and the projects are the action steps towards the goal. That, again, doesn't mean there can't be a goal that's just a project in and of itself. And if you are someone who's good at keeping your goals on the smaller side, that might be how it turns out. If you have way too many things, it is likely coming from just needing to prioritize in general. Whether it goals or projects or to-do lists or any of those things, your resources are still limited. Time and energy and all the other resources that go along with goals are still going to be limited. So you're going to have to, even if the project is not related to a goal, it's still going to take resources. So is that something you want to spend your time doing? And if it is, ask yourself why it doesn't fall into a goal. Because if it is just a project that you came up with, does it have to be done? Now, obviously, there's going to be things that pop up that have to be done. And I don't know, Carrie, if you're really asking about personal or work. I am answering this strictly from a personal standpoint because I think it is very different if we're talking about work-related goals. So things are going to pop up. Project things that you want to finish personally are going to pop up. If it does not align with one of your goals, ask yourself why. Is this a project that you actually need to be working on right now? And if it's like, I have to, I don't know, I'm trying to think of something like I have to redo this thing in my house because it's like falling apart. Then you have to, and you have to stop and prioritize, reallocate resources. And that might mean you've got to cut a goal. But if a project idea comes up, let's say, I had an example and now it just left my brain because I literally just did that. I was like, oh, I should put that on my list to do this week. And then I was like, wait, stop. You don't have to do that. That's not a requirement. And it is kind of aligned with one of your goals. So I went and put it on the idea list for next quarter. It wasn't the reading thing. It was something else. I was like, you're not doing this quarter. It's not a goal. So those are kind of my thoughts on that. I don't know if that really helps. I see a lot of like dittos in the comments. From Jamie, I prioritize projects that are contributing to my goals and time sensitive projects. Anything more is extra. That's kind of what I just said. Yeah. Excellent explanation. Definitely feels like I need to prioritize this and reflect on resources. Yeah. You're new to goals, so this is really helpful. Totally understand, Carrie, that this is also something like thinking about it this way that will get easier with practice. There's a lot of related things there was a super sweet message that came during the breakdown, during the workshops. There's a lot of goal related steps that get so much easier with time, y'all, so much easier with time. During the goal setting workshops, when we were breaking them down, somebody sent me a message that said, when we first did this, the first time she did it, she was like, 5 minutes felt like not enough time. I felt like I was so rushed. I didn't have time to break down my goals in this time. And I really struggled. And now it feels like plenty of time, more than I could possibly need. And that is what I feel like I could say it over and over again, but it'll take time for it to really sink in for you that the more you do this, the easier it will get. Okay, I'm going back up to where the questions are. Alexis, how do you handle conflicting goals, like working through organizing areas of the house that really impact your day and would reduce stress, but always cost money, which impacts financial goals? This is a great question, and this definitely happens. It comes down to priorities. You have to decide in that moment, what is your bigger priority? Is it to hit your financial goals, whether that's a savings goal or a debt payoff or paying for something big, etc., Or is it the organizing your house and reducing your stress in that area? It is, I wish we could do all the goals. I wish we could do them all. But resources are always going to be limited, like I was just telling Carrie. And even though time and money are our top 100% top most limiting resources when it comes to goals, finances is on the list of resources. Mental capacity is on the list of resources. Help from others is on the list of resources. There are so many resources. Actually, the whole video I did on this, like resources, when it comes to your goals that you have to consider. And you're just going to have to prioritize sometimes. And it can feel frustrating in the moment, or like defeating, or like you're failing at the one that you can't do because you're focused on the one that you need to do. But just know that it's temporary, right? And right now you're focusing on the one that's important to you. And then the other one will come later. Like you will get to it. So it's temporary. Teresa, this is a great question. How do you keep from putting too much? Actually, let me make sure that there's nothing. Okay. I was make sure there's nothing additional to Alexa's question. Hold on. I'm going to take a sip of coffee. You'll have some great questions today. I'm so excited. Okay. How do you keep from putting too much to get done on your daily to-do list? I always seem to have a list a mile long and run out of steam before I get finished. My time management or calculating how long each will take needs help. Teresa, first off, you're not alone. We have all 100% been there or are there on a regular basis. The first thing I want to say is you have to decide, are you the kind of person that gets demotivated when you have a to-do list a mile long? I personally, if I look at my plan for the day, which has a lot of stuff on it, this is all probably not going to get done. Unless everything goes perfectly, and like even then, probably not, knowing my life the where that is right now. But I'm okay with that. Like I'm okay looking at this list and saying it's okay if it all doesn't get done. Like I can move these things to the next day. I still will stay motivated to keep going, even if I know that I'm not going to hit things. Now, if you are somebody who needs the list to be super realistic in order to keep going, then you have to cut things, right? And you have to work on being realistic and underestimate as opposed to overestimate. That said, I did actually recently do a video on this very topic. So during December, there is a collaboration that Tamara from the Paper and Pen Girl created, and there are 25 YouTube videos, 25 channels that upload a video every day in December about a specific topic. And the topic in December is going from planned to done, which is aligned with your question. My video specifically is exactly what your question is, which is how do I make sure that my day is realistic? And so one of the things you said is estimating how long things are going to take is very tough. Always overestimate. I usually double whatever pops into my head because we are chronic underestimators. Number 2 is always leaving white space on your planner because things are going to pop up, and either that white space at the end of the day either gets used because something popped up, because something took longer than you thought it would, or you have white space at the end of the day and you can judge based on your energy whether you're going to do something in that space or you're going to rest and relax because you probably deserve that. And why can't I think of what the third one is? I would recommend you watch that video if you haven't yet. But the other thing I will say is I always keep my to-do list split into 2 sides. And I realize I flipped this around and I haven't confirmed that there's nothing I wanted to share on that. The left side is the time stuff. That is the stuff that like really does have to get done today. Like at some point, this has to get done. And then the right side is like nice to do. Those are the things I'd like to get to if I can, but if I don't, it's totally okay. Okay. Amber, are there certain goal categories that you discussed with your significant other prior to setting your yearly goals? So, yes and no. Most of the time, my personal goals are very just that. They're my personal goals. And I make them things that they're in my control, and they aren't necessarily impacted by other people Like I can do them myself. That said, there are obviously some that involve him or things that go together. Most of the time, we just have a general like yearly thought conversation before I finalize my yearly goals. If and I know that it is going to work within our overarching family goals, household goals, if that makes sense. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think about like how this actually plays out without like talking too much about anything specific. Um, for example, one of my annual goals this year is family fun and memories. And I knew that would include travel, right? That's a really vague category. And then my Q1 goal was to book travel. Is it to book all of it? Just to book all of it. I don't know that I'm going to get to that, y'all. It's January 3rd. I'm already like, that goal's not happening because we may make plans for the whole year, but I don't know that we're going to book everything for like Q4 in Q1. That might be a little early. Anyways, so that was my Q1 goal, was to plan and book 2024 travel. Again, vague enough that then we did have a conversation that was, okay, which weddings are we going to this year? Where do we want to travel? What days are we traveling to where, et cetera? And then my action step of booking flights, then I can execute on that. And I had to have a conversation with him in between those two, if that made sense. So I didn't need to have the conversation with him before I set the annual goal, but I did need the conversation between the Q1 goal and the January action step. Hopefully that kind of helps answer that question. All right. Jennifer, last night I rewatched Breaking Down Goals and Consistency. You have said that rewatching something at a different time helps you because you're in a different mind space, which is so true. Thank you for sharing. I know I say this all the time, and you probably are so sick of me saying this. When you watch any content, not just mine, any content that you consume, you are consuming it with your current life and your current goals at the forefront of your mind. And so when you rewatch it, you are going to get something different out of it based on wherever you are at in that moment. So if you watched the consistency video 2 years ago when it went up, I think it was 2 years ago. It was definitely in my old office. So it's at least a year old. When you watched it, you were thinking about your current goals when you watched that video. If you watch it again now, you're going to get something different out of it. I promise you that. I'm not saying go sit back and rewatch all the videos, but don't think like, oh, just because I watched her video on consistency, there's nothing else I can learn from that video about consistency. If that's something that you're struggling with, go watch that video. Now, one of my work things for this year, it's definitely not happening in Q1, is to create a database for you of all of my prior videos so that you can easily go back and find them. I do have like some playlists. I have a playlist all about routine. So if that's something you need, like I have a YouTube playlist on that. I have a YouTube playlist on creating YouTube videos because that's a question I get a lot. So I have those resources for you. I have all the goal tip type videos in one playlist. So you could, if you're looking for one of those types of videos, it should be relatively easy to find. But if we talked about something in a live, that's the piece of it that's going to be a little bit harder. It's going to be harder for you to go find that, right? So that's my plan. I want to work on that so that it's easier for you to reference. But as always, the reminder that watching it again is helpful. So thank you for sharing. How many goals do you set per year, and are they different from quarterly and monthly goals? So there is no right number of goals, Carrie. The number of goals that you set is really just based on your resources, like we've continued to talk about in this video, is how many resources you have to work on your goals. And kind of what comes out of your prep work. When I did my prep work, it kind of led me to those 4 categories. And if you have watched or haven't watched my goals videos, I have 4 goals for the year, but it's really 4 vague categories that I want to focus on. And they are so wide ranged that I always have them as like my guidepost, but I can pick a lot of things that fall into those categories, right? So then quarterly, I picked 8 this quarter. And part of that is knowing my resources this quarter are both more available because we're not traveling in Q1. That's not totally true. We are going to a wedding, but we're going for literally one night because I'm not quite ready to be away from her. I mean, I am going to be for one night. I'm already not excited about it. not the wedding, being away from her for a night. But the with the exception of that one night, we're not traveling in Q1. So I knew that I had more of my time resource in Q1. So I set 8 quarterly goals, and those are much more concrete than the yearly goals that I can actually say, like, I checked this off or I didn't check this off. And then same thing with the monthly. Essentially, the story is I evaluate my resources going into that quarter or that month, and I pick what I'm going to focus on. Ashley or Ashley Lynn. I guess if both of those, if you go by both names, or if that's your middle name. I like the idea of having good, better, best marker for goals, but I struggle with how to incorporate them in defining my goals. Where's the best place to add them in, the goals versus the action steps? This is a great question. This is harder to implement for personal goals, which is my bread and butter. That's where I like to focus. I do good, better, best for business goals when there's numbers associated, right? So at the good level is, this number, better is this number, best is this number. In terms of incorporating them, and I can't remember if this is just something that I've kind of figured out or if Sarah Cannon, which is where I learned this concept from. I know I've referenced her a million times at this point. She has a YouTube channel called Heart Breathings. She also has a course/program called HB90, which is what I use for my business goals and my business project planning. So the way that I kind of approach it is good is this is really realistic. Like, life would have to completely explode, which could happen, right? Something could totally pop up that you had not planned at all that really throws a wrench in your life. Barring that, I can achieve this good goal, right? This is feasible. Better is if I complete all the kind of next level action steps that I'm thinking about. If I complete all of the business projects that I've got on my plate, if I kind of go that extra mile, not extra, really, yeah, it is a little bit of an extra. I do, and I complete all the things. That's the better. That's what I should hit, given that. And then best is like pie in the sky. This would be like my dream end all be all. So that's kind of how I think about it. And you can think about it that way with personal goals as well. Like, this is the baseline. I could hit this, right? So maybe it's reading 1 book a month. Like, that is the good goal. And then the better goal would be like, if I do my habits of reading regularly, 2 books a month really is like my better goal. And then my best goal would be like 3 books a month. And that would be awesome. Kind of example. You could add them in your goals. It could also just be kind of a back and forth, right? It could be you get to the action. You say, give you the reading example. You say, okay, I'm going to set a goal to read 2 books a month. And then you get to the action steps and you quickly do the math. And you think about the average book length and the average reading speed, and you realize that is however long per day of reading. And you're like, well, that's not really that feasible for me. So then you cut it back, and it's almost like chicken and the egg in that scenario if you're going to be setting kind of concrete goals. The last thing I'll say on this topic is it really does lend itself more to numerical goals, which I don't always feel like are necessary for personal goals. You can absolutely set them. They are totally feasible, or not feasible, but totally possible. Like, you can absolutely set numerical goals, but I don't think they're required. And so if you can't figure out how to make a good, better, best for your goals, don't. It's totally fine. Actually, the last thing I will say on this topic is for my goals that are not super concrete. So my goals that are a little bit more vague, when I think about did I achieve them or not, I think about it on a scale of 1 to 10. And you can directly line that up. Right? Good is probably, in my mind, like 4 to 5, 4, 5, 6, like kind of like average, like right down the middle. Better is like 7, 8. Like, I did a pretty good job. And then best would be like a 9, 10, which I feel like I hardly ever do, like 9, 10. Because that's kind of how I judge those types of goals for me. So that's another way you can kind of apply that. Sorry, I've got nervous and my candle was like going to light my plant on fire. It's not. We're fine. Mia, I know we're only 3 days in, but I'm wondering how long you should wait before giving up on daily habits and moving them to later. If you find that if you're asking this because you have too many, do it now. Keep one and cut the rest and just focus on that one for now. I don't want you to give up all of them because that you can do more than that. So focus on one. I'm trying to think I get this question a lot. How long do I try something before in general, not even like 3 days into the new year? How long do I do something before I either increase it or decrease it or whatever? And there's no right answer. It really depends on what is the habit, how long you've been working on it, is it a 5-minute habit? Is it an hour-long habit? But given that it is January 3rd, I'm answering this question with January 3rd cap on. A lot of us were probably way too ambitious on January 1st. And we started way too many habits on January 1st. And we have now lumped them all together in our mind. And it's hard and it's too many. And so we are thinking all or nothing, right? All or nothing. I can't do all of these habits, so I'm going to do none of them, which is exactly why starting them all on January 1st is tough. It's New Year's resolutions are bananas. It's hard to maintain. Instead, I want you to think about, okay, if I could just solidify one of these habits in January, which one would be the most beneficial, and focus on that one and then let the rest of them go. And you could always add one in like the middle of the month if you feel ready for it, or wait till February. We have a whole year. Great question. How do you decide on the categories you'll contain your goals in for the year? Do you ever change them mid-year? So the first question comes from a lot of reflection and prep work. I think about what I loved about last year, what I didn't love about last year, what's important to me. I have a whole set of questions about that, like the first part of your comment, that I created in my goal planner. All the questions that I ask myself and all the things that I think about, I put it together in a nice little package, and you can purchase that just by itself. Like if you want just the prep work pages to help you figure out what your goals are, you can purchase just that chunk of it. That's how I decide what my categories are going to be. Do you ever change them mid-year? Absolutely. I personally believe that it is beneficial for us to think about where we want to be in December of next year, but it is naive of us to think that things about that aren't going to change between now and then. Our lives are constantly in flux. Things are changing all the time, sometimes within our control and sometimes not in our control, but things are always changing. And so what I always recommend is you check in with those annual goals on a quarterly basis. And each quarter you think about, and by recommend, this is also part of my planner, is that each quarter you reflect on your annual goals. How's it going? What's working? What's not working? Do I want to keep this goal? Do I want to change this goal? Do I want to let it go? Right? That's the decisions that I'm making each quarter about my annual goals. Sometimes the changes are huge, right? Like when I added having a baby to my annual goals last year. Sometimes the changes are small. I just want to like tweak a word here or there. Like I just don't like, I used the word whatever, and I want to tweak it slightly. And then, yeah, sometimes I just let them go. And I'm like, this is not a priority anymore. And I realize that I only have so many resources. It's like a theme today. And I don't have time to think about all of these goals anymore. And I want to cut one. That happened last year with changing my last name, which, by the way, I started the process. So I took it off my goals list for this year, but I have started the process. So anyways, those are my thoughts on that. Absolutely. You have every right to change your mind. Always. Love the concept of 4 goals for the year by breaking it down by quarter. Feels more manageable. Absolutely. What I have said before that is why, the big why behind this is that you know so much more. The shorter the time frame, the more you know, is what I'm trying to say. So when you think about the whole year, you only know so much about what the whole year is going to look like. You still only know so much about the quarter, but I have a lot better sense of what January, February, and March are going to look like than October, November, December. So I can plan a lot more concretely on a shorter time frame. But the other thing I want to say about this topic that came up the other day in a texting with a community member is your quarters do not have to be the quarter 1, quarter 2 of the calendar year. Now, if that works for you, like if you don't have anything that is drastically different about your life, it provides a nice natural check-in. However, if you have something else going on, if you work in education or your kids being in or out of school really impacts you, maybe your year looks like this. Maybe it's from January 1st to spring break, and then it's spring break until the end of the school year, and then it's summer, and then it's like fall. Right? Maybe that's what your year looks like. Maybe you have 5, because I actually feel like you want to split up one more time. But maybe not. I don't know what you would do. I guess like the September to Christmas, and then like Christmas. Or maybe you're an accountant and March and April are just bananas for you trying to do tax season. You're a tax accountant. So you have January, February, and then you don't set goals in March and April. And then you do May, June. And then the last 2 quarters you just do regularly, like Q3 and Q4, something like that. The quarters do not have to be exactly lining up with the quarters. Now, my calls and my support are always going to be on that quarterly basis because that is the simplest. But for you, if your life revolves something differently, break up your year differently. Just the concept of breaking up your year is what's helpful. Holy moly, y'all. We have 4 minutes left. We're almost out of time. I need to ask you my final question. Y'all's questions today have been money. What is the one thing you're going to do this week to make progress on your goals? What is the one step you are committing to right here, live in the chat with us, share, or in the comments if you are watching the replay and you're still here? What is the one step you're committing to make progress on your goals? I want you to share it with us. And while I wait for yours to come in, I'm going to share mine. It is the kitchen declutter. The 15 minutes a week is what I'm working on. Spoiler, I already started working on it last week also. Well, Sam was in the kitchen doing something and I just was like, I'm going to start decluttering. So I did. But I'm still going to take my one action step this week and work on it. So that is my one step. Let's see what some of yours are. Finish setting up your planner for January, sit down and budget for the quarter, make a goal template in Notion. Ooh, I love that for all of our digital users, our digital friends. As always, your step does not have to be ginormous to make progress. Small progress is still progress. Watch the goal setting replay and start your 2024 goals. Love that. Hitting your daily/weekly step goal. I was just talking to somebody in my life, a personal person, about the concept of a weekly step goal. They were like, wow, that's such a good idea. I was like, maybe you should watch my videos. Reading your book so you don't have to panic read at the end of 2024 like I did for 2023. Oh, I totally feel that. Clean one bin in your office. Schedule time to watch the replay of tonight's community call. Yep, if you can't join live, I love that. Write down a list of goals. Such a great place to start. Not off to a great start, staying positive. It's only been 3 days, Jennifer. It's been 3 days. You've got this. Read before bed, keep the habit going, close out December, and finish setting up January's budget. I love hearing about all your different steps. So many steps, y'all. Thank you for hanging out with me today for our first live of the new year and our first new format. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate that. I'm excited I have all the topics already planned for Q1, which is so fun and exciting. But as always, if there's a topic that you think would be beneficial, please feel free to leave it in the comments. Otherwise, there is no live next week. If you missed that at the beginning, there is no live next week. I do not have childcare, but there will be a video in its place. And then we will be back January, whatever the other January is, live. And there is no plans until April to miss one. So I will see all of you very soon and have a great rest of your day. Thanks for hanging out with me.